And you see the forceful removal of MPs, followed by the police barricading of the APC office, the tear gassing of the APC office, and that was followed by the election in Hamilton. All the election now, we don't happen as alone. We get this sequence of violence, consistent violence, chain of violence ongoing. Now we don't see the sporadic killing of citizens, both in prisons and outside of prisons, in Makini, all these places. So you begin to ask yourself, when this government continue up to the elections of 2023, what is going to happen? Now they are even talking about shifting the election date to 2024. So you
Yeah,
see the
I
appointment,
was gonna
the,
ask
appoint,
you if you think the next
the
election is
appointment
gonna be fair.
of a neck chairperson. Even when people they question the legality of that particular situation, they have no regard for law anymore. They have no regard for human life. They have no regard for due process. So from the inauguration of this government, that is what is most abhorrent. Their blatant disregard for due process, uh, callous, callousness when it comes to respect for human life, and this blatant impunity regarding the continuous detention of people. Oh, this is unimaginable in this period. No matter how we try for
Okay.
understand this particular situation, we can't
Okay.
we can't, can't
Mr.
put it.
Cherno, Mr. Cherno, me people are on our way just they join we this Cast TV and we get uh, Mr. Cherno Alpha Emba where they with you right now. It talk about the waiting our topic today now the critical evaluation of President Bio in 2 years and 4 months na office. Now Mr. Cherno they tell we about and Mr. Cherno for long know who that they talk to now. Mr. Cherno na be the former spokesperson for the National Democratic Alliance in the 2012 elections and also na chairman for the African Socialist Movement of Sierra Leone. And he also currently follow an office na them idle man we just the kind of social media for talk. He also they pursue in PhD na Northwestern University na Illinois na the United States of America. And he also work extensively na the West African as a journalist, political activist, and at least now also a Pan-Africanist. So I mean, this na in the just an evaluation for waiting President Biodondi for the past 2 years. So I don't want let people then just they think say now somebody will just come they can't talk boto batale kwe salonki talk because this you get the history of the political affairs them na Sierra Leone in palm and no need for go na in phone they talk about and also Mr. Cherno we be get no say now you outbreak the corruption na state house we are in the office of the president we then give Fatima Bio $3 billion.
Dollars
He
or
say
leons?
$3 billion we
Billion?
3 billion
Leon,
leons. I
Leon,
mean, sorry, three
Yeah.
billion leons. I'm sorry. 3 billion leons. We say they launch half ounce of our gas projects. When are the sole idea of the president wife? But now the same president we say ounce of our gas. Now go na Makini we then say president be one family one picking in the nine for the man saying a lie. And I also say Peking can get belle self he born he can get belle go na school. Mr. Cherno, since now you be pull this thing out because you get a lot of things the way now you outburst. When I make a they call you say you know the WikiLeaks of Sierra Leone, but to go for any more go give because most thing what these governments they do now you they dig and pull them do. What you want to talk about this money you then give Fatima Bill and how you see how they operate this answer for our guys now any serious business or na money just take and go eat.
in the first place, before we come to the question of the funding of the first lady in office, maybe emphasize the fact that we oppose to all forms of violence against women. Okay, all forms of violence against women, including the violation of the bodies of women. And that
That's
includes
true.
rape, includes sexual exploitation of women. It include also FGM, where the first lady thinks it's not a problem. But when you talk about actual violence against women, we not see how you go subtract that one day from the equation. But for the sake of politics, in things not a problem, not a problem. So we got to underline that one day. We know we support any genuine fight for women's rights. We support that one day. We support also any effort for stem the tide of violence against all sectors of the population. Now, one of the reasons why we also we call Maada out because of the current violation of the rights of other citizens, including in political opponents that we continue to detain at Padimba Road, and get no regard for people and picking them way in police officers and they go and kill all over the country. So when we put that aside, now coming to the question of the First Lady, this thing about the office of the First Lady, there's more we underline say the office of the First Lady is not a statutory institution. The First Lady is not an extension of the government of Sierra Leone. The office of the First Lady is not part of the government of Sierra Leone. That I want to know. You know, they are the constitution. You know, to a legal institution provided for by law. That one they will go for put them aside. So what we don't know that then like any kind of NGO which was informed no more, and then call office of First Lady, not a legal institution. So the First Lady in itself, not just a title, where now the result of the office of the president, where you get a president, a married, the question of a president wife, now that no more the simple thing, and now First Lady. So First Lady itself, that title word and can give First Lady when they call her excellency and this and that. Now just no more people will like for call themselves title can make that one day because not a position like where they talk say this na minister, this na this. Okay, minister is a title, but you go say na position. I think where you get from. But this First Lady, na just president wife. Now that it mean where you man na president, you na the wife of the president. Now that it mean by First Lady. Not a political position. Not to whether they appoint, but not to whether they elect person for. So that said, because not to a statutory institution, a legal institution, not to institution we're supposed to get money from the consolidated fund. The First Lady get right for undertake projects just like any other NGO. You can solicit funding from outside agencies, but even at that, you suppose anybody who collect money in the name of Salon people, suppose for account for that money there. That advocacy anti-corruption can even investigate NGOs where they solicit money from other partners in the name of helping Salon. You don't understand? The law provides it, then subject to scrutiny. So the office of the First Lady, being not a legal institution, not supposed to get money from government coffers. So the African government investigate.
Mr. Ba,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I'll interrupt you. We don't see the fetch where you fetch. We not saying a real Pan-Africanist. And one thing will be what I ask you because would you fetch this fetch and you get for help get people who they help you fetch this fetch. If you say this fetch where they try for combat against corruption as so you go get for win.
Well, it's not a question of winning. Now, the question is, what is the role of any citizen in a democracy? Now, my own role, my own contribution to good governance. That one, every citizen will get civic responsibility and duties. And that duties and civic responsibility include for pay taxes, if you work, for obey law and order, for vote or not, for exercise your franchise, for exercise your right to free speech, your constitutional right. So all them here, and as a citizen, my own contribution to national development is by highlighting and engaging government and holding governments accountable and helping to educate people and speak out on behalf of people. So I mean, right, both as an individual and as a citizen for do what they do. So it's not a question of winning. The point is we can make progress because if we not come to a point where people understand the responsibility as citizens, say not for vote no more, wait to election can you vote. Where you get a government, now your responsibility for also hold that government they accountable to the things that they promise for do. And what are the things in the transparency, accountability, the rule of law, the maintenance of law and order, the protection of the lives and property of citizens, the provision of peace, all them here, and our government and duties and responsibility. So we're not going to pay somebody, not going to get money, who they pay with taxes, and they use that taxes and they for pay themselves salaries, buy mutka for themselves, and live at the expense of the citizens, and then also treat we like say, where you give like the people tell you, we got to tell government thank you. The government owe the people an obligation and a responsibility of citizens for also hold them accountable to that obligation. It's a social contract. So my role here is to exercise my own part of the social contract by demanding that the government see to the people what is their own bargain, because we already they obey and pay taxes and live up as citizens in a democratic society. So not a question of winning or losing, a question of what is the role of citizens. Now they do.
So far, are you seeing any result
Oh yeah, would they make progress? I think say we're not going for a lost sight of in this kind of engagement. We talk about not just about progress. Is progress being made? We know say the tightening up of the democratic space right now na a horrifiable thing, especially when we don't experience war in a saloon for the last, for almost 10 years. We don't come from the war 2002 to now, 2012. So they come 20 years now after the war almost. So we not go afford a situation we side against them where we don't make at least right to free expression, free democratic space, uh, an independent press, and all them here. Somebody go just close them down in the name of enforcing a dictatorship, in the name of consolidating power for himself and your own small group of political militia. We not allow that kind of situation. We don't grow past that particular thing. So looking at the country and what thing they happen now, this ongoing detention, ongoing police brutality at the level in which they happen, um, now signs of reversal. And we role as citizens to prevent that kind of, because it's not good for we, it's not good for even the people within our power. Because that power that they hold is temporal. It's so temporal that they can lose it in 2023 or in the next election. They're not going to be happy if anybody that comes to power decide for arrest them and do like how they do to their own company, and which is obvious. So we cannot have a situation where these reprisals are ongoing. It's not good for collective human development. It's not good for collective development of a society like ours that is so small, that is so interrelated, interconnected. So we not for allow the progress what we don't make, at least that free democratic space so that people will debate ideas. Even good for government, because when you get citizens, they talk, they debate, you get ideas, you're able to harness the various talents and ideas in the country. You benefit from the public discourse, from the public dialogue. You take what's good and what's bad and change some of the things the way they do. But when you force people into silence, then you don't deprive yourself of credible public opinion where you go use for formulate policy and implement policy and provide the services where people in need and solve people and problems. So you are narrowing yourself in a corner where you cannot benefit from the available human resource capacity where you get in the country in terms of voices, with the plurality of voices where you need, and then decide to harness the required public opinion is central to good governance. So when you decide to suffocate public opinion and deprive people and the ability for speak out in a democratic arrangement, what you are doing is that you are depriving yourself of that benefit of tapping from the collective human resource where you need for develop the country. And that is what is happening now in Sierra Leone, and which is bad, both for those in power and those who are not in power, ordinary citizens. And
Okay.
why we for fight against that,
All
why
right,
we for
sure.
struggle against, why we for expose
Okay.
that.
All right, go ahead. What's in? I just want to ask this question: what can we do now as citizens to ensure that we come next presidential election is going to be free and fair?
I think so now part of what we do so now, mass public engagement, mass discussion on the responsibility of citizens, that the threat of dictatorship not for force people into silence. We cannot be intimidated into silence. The more we become silent in the face of dictators, the more dictatorship will thrive. And the successive continuation or that will allow dictators will grow into these monsters where they want to become, good for the country. They reverse the country. Because even for private business people, you cannot do business in an environment that is politically toxic, that is politically unstable. Nobody no go carry go money there. Nobody no go invest. And when there is no investment for people who believe in private investment, then job creation no go happen. Because in the final analysis, governments cannot employ everyone. There has to be room for an open market if people believe in that what they call open market. But what I try to say that the conducive environment for investment, for private engagement, get for happen for make the country develop. And what will they do so critical for what we talk about. Democracy cannot exist without conversation, without negotiation. Now, a key component of good governance, when we prevent that one day for happen, with the ripple effect that there will be no investment, there will be no private sector development, there will be no holistic national development, and that will affect human growth, it will affect human development, and at the same time, that the country will suffer. So these kind of conversations we will get now on this social media platform is crucially important for people who will listen, because those individuals will also take these kind of conversations, so that we need to replicate this kind of conversations all over, both within
So,
Sierra Leone and outside of Sierra Leone. That's one. Secondly, we also get for make sure say we hold institutions to the democratic requirement that include the National Electoral Commission, include the Political Parties Registration Commission, include the police force, include the security services, because government they feel say when they appoint judges, now they appoint the police service, now then dominate the young people and they don't staff the young people, they suppose party supporters as head of this institution, they can undercut due process and also ensure say that your wishes happen as against the general mass, the general desires of the population. So for prevent, we get a critical role for play for make sure say the verdict, electoral verdict is protected. So when people then vote against the APC, we protect that verdict. So we have that responsibility to ensure say nobody is going to steal the verdict of the people. If the people want to vote you in for a second term, they should. If they think you do not deserve a second term, there is no law where talk say anybody who can have power is supposed to get 10 years. No, you are voted for 5 years. If you cannot deliver in that 5 years, if you everything you get in 5 years, now violence, abuse of office, now flagrant use of extraordinary powers, the use of the police for terrorized citizens. Citizens have a right to mobilize, to vote you out. And when they do that, they can also not only vote you out, ensure that their votes are counted, their votes are protected. And this kind of conversation about what we get for Mount on a national scale, especially as these census they come up, we get the right for also monitor the census. If even in countries where governments want to use census for tilt the democratic space for multiply constituencies, people can carry out an independent census alongside the national census by counting. We call them parallel counting. These are things that have been done in Sudan, they've been done in East Africa, they've been done in different places. So we can borrow those kinds of lessons by mounting civil society, independent civil society, monitoring, not just monitoring of the statistical process, the counting, but also by undertaking our own parallel registration. Organizations can do that. And also coming up with statistics, vet these statistics, the basis. We know the model, statistical model, where statistics study, for example, get for use for capture the population and whether the population don't increase or it don't decrease and which areas increase. If they say the Southeast don't get larger population, what are the basis of that one? Because government already said there are gaps with the last census. Okay, we cannot deny that. We cannot say that is true. But let us see how we can have a credible census if that is what is actually required, so that nobody not going to use the census result for determine which type of float constituencies, more constituencies or not, because we want to get the parliamentary majority. So we for prevent government from using statistics, from using demographics or geography for tilt the political landscape in their favor. It don't mean when somebody don't do bad, you get to do the same thing. We know that an Eskuruma's politics has a great influence on how Maada Bio has been conducting. Like I will start the conversation. When Eskuruma say free healthcare, then say free education. And Eskuruma say action past intention. Maada Bio say na talk and do. So we for make sure say that kind of similarity, that kind of bad politics will vote against 2018. We make sure say in not repeater in this 2023. And one way for stop and force that these statistics were not announced. They have great hopes. But we hope say the leadership of Statistics Sierra Leone will be decent enough, will be independent enough for make sure say they do not allow politicians for use them for carry out some kind of unprofessional conduct which will serve the interest of politicians. That is something upon them. And our citizens will get the right for make sure the Statistics Sierra Leone work according to principles governing statistics.
I have a quick question for you. If you had the opportunity to spend 10 minutes with Maada Bio, what will you say to him?
Oh, not 10 minutes. Me not a stranger to Maada Bio, anybody within a power. These things that I've said. I've been saying it for the longest time. My position on
What will you say to him directly right now?
No, I've been saying it. What I'd already said, I don't say not even 10 minutes. This is the thing where I don't say from where Maada Bio can power from the inauguration of his transition committee. I've been saying that they have commenced in the wrong way. That this new direction has not commenced, and there is no significant difference. That it is in the interest. I don't say it's in the interest of Maada Bio and this group of people in power for rule according to the tenets of good governance. He in their own interest than it is in the interest of his opponents, because what he is doing now to his opponents is something that is going to be done against him when he lost power, and he's going to leave power. He's not going to be president of Sierra Leone forever. So, what we are saying basically is in his interest. So it's not about 10 minutes, whether it's 1 minute, 1 year, or 2 years. What we are basically, we are helping Maada Bio to conduct his affairs of government in the right way, because it's going to serve him. It's going to benefit him and his group in power.
So do you think he's listening?
Oh, it's upon him. He's listening. The question is not whether he's hearing or listening. The question is whether he is willing to govern according to the principles of good governance, according to respect for rule of. So far, he has not shown any evidence that he is willing to. He has demonstrated callousness when it comes to human life. How can you have police officers killing people in Makini, and what you have to show is a video of you and your wife doing a test run of a safari motorcycle? That is callousness. So that kind of leadership is something, I mean, unimaginable. Would they do that kind of thing? So it is not in his interest. I mean, are people in Pekin? If somebody will do that to his child, I'm sure he will not think about test running a motorcycle. That would be the last thing on his mind. So so far his conduct, that episode alone is illustrative of the way he has been thinking about governance, and the way he thinks political power is entitlement. He can run Sierra Leone the way he thinks, the way he feels, and this is not a military regime. It is not the military. Even the military nowadays are civilized enough because they don't become well educated now. They don't travel. They don't go into other jurisdictions where they are shown what military officers can do. So even the most uncivilized army officers in power will not behave in such a way, demonstrate such callousness when it comes to human life.
So
You don't understand. It's
are you
interesting.
surprised that Madabil spent a lot of years in the West,
No,
given his
I'm not.
behavior?
Oh, I'm not surprised. I'm just amused that that he will think that in this day and age, in this internet age, he will govern. He will think of governing in a way similar to what this is running the equivalence of what you might call a political militia. And this militia approach to power is something that is unthinkable in this 21st century, especially nowadays with the liberation of the instrument of mass communication. Because no matter how powerful it is a saloon, for example, he cannot stop this kind of conversation that we're having. And this kind of conversation can be replicated anywhere in Sierra Leone or anywhere. Nobody can. I mean, you're not able to become a dictator now that will be the equivalent of the Mobutus, the Asani Abachas. It's impossible to do in Sierra Leone right now. You can't. In fact, it's a road you are destroying yourself because you are not going to be president of Sierra Leone forever, and you cannot hide anywhere in this world now. So so I'm amused that this group of individuals now in power are not thinking about even their own safety. And,
That's
and
true.
even now, right now, he's more vulnerable than any other person in a saloon because the world is in crisis. Now, if anything happens at Salon, nobody, America is not going to rescue him. Europe is not going to rescue him. He cannot even run go to Liberia. So this continuous violence and oppression. And look at the incident in Makini when you have a situation where young people will come out on the street holding stones against armed police officers. You should be scared as a president because we only see that kind of situation in Palestine between Israelis and Palestine. That's what we used to see. We've never seen that kind of situation in Sierra Leone, which are
That's
people
true.
are willing to take up stick and stone for resist armed police officers, even to the point where they see their people being killed. That don't tell you say people are getting fed up with the kind of leadership that you are demonstrating. But then we blame opposition and they blame say APC no one give them right for govern. That is crash. Because the SLPP, while in opposition, blame the APC and Nkrumah for making them an ineffective opposition. I cannot understand how you can be in power, in charge of the army, in charge of the police, in charge of the court, and you still blame your opponents of frustrating you in power. I mean, what kind of excuse is that? You were saying that you are ineffective as an opposition because the APC of Mr. Kuruma destabilize your opposition, destabilize your party as an opposition, divide a party. Now, when I didn't power, when I said APC again, they prevent you from governing. APC is not giving you chance. But then APC did not stop you from instructing your finance ministry to give over 3 billion leones to your wife to launch Hands of Our Girls campaign. APC did not stop you from traveling all over the world. In 2 years, you've become the most traveled president. I mean, what kind of logic is that? So I think it is in the interest of the SLPP in power, Madabio in particular, for understand, say the young people of Sierra Leone cannot be oppressed to the point where they will not react. And the incidents in Tombo, in Lunsar, and also in Makeni a few days ago is enough to tell them what is at stake. They are playing with with their own safety because, like I said, the world is in crisis. America not go rescue any African government. I mean, as a president right now, you should be scared. The world is in crisis. Trump is
Although,
worried
what?
about his election. The same with
Uh,
Britain, the same with France. So who is going to? So if you offend them people, I tell the whole country rise up against you, which is a democratic thing to do.
do you
If
know
you,
if do
it's
you
going to
know
be a
if
problem for you.
there is any group or any organization that is putting together all the crimes that is being committed by the current government?
no, them things are not hidden because what they happen now, they all over the internet. When the Padimba Road incident happened, Amnesty International write and demand for an independent investigation into the incident at Padimba Road. So, like I say, a day upon citizens for mount an independent demand to some of these international organizations. DFID could be one, demanding that DFID seize their security support to Sierra Leone, the support to police officers and the army until such human rights, make it a condition that the government of Sierra Leone for meeting international obligation when it comes to the protection of the right of Sierra Leoneans, including an investigation into the Padamba Road incident in itself. That alone, Nigerian demand. Every citizen, any citizen can do that. I've said it some elsewhere and I'm repeating it again. That's an obligation for every citizen for do. We get the right to hold these governments accountable to basic principles of governance. Now, what in the constitution is supposed to do?
Okay, me
We
fambule.
cannot just wait for an
Me
election.
fambule. Me fambule. Una how they view. Una no. Anwala una get doubt. Una the watch show. Una the watch. Cherno Alpha Emba. When the editor in chief for the Africanist press. And I Pan-Africanist. This man they talk to now in heart and mind we get for Sierra Leone like then Kwame Kuma, Marcus Garvey, then Martin Luther King, where they look and fight for the right of the black people. Now so Mr. Cherno they look and fight for Sierra Leoneans the way they currently in the United States, not to idula within a social media where they can talk for let people there in the camp for give the message and make sure say if free the Sierra Leone people and also him na the editor-in-chief for the Africanist press, and also he currently there na the United States. He na a student na the Northwestern University la in Illinois, where na in the United States they do in PhD.
I think they get a call.
So if they do in PhD, yeah, we will come the lad done with him. Then if the person get question or Mr. Ba go answer. So I want to just join me. I just tell you about Mr. Ba.
Yes, hello.
Yeah, hello, yes. Who are they calling?
Yes,
Where are they from?
Well, this is Mohammed. He said he called from Maryland.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes.
What's your contribution?
Well, my question I ask Mr. Ba because former colleague now FBC. I really appreciate him presence now, and I really appreciate him tremendous job with the do that alone. And one of the media outlets were very impartial as far as assessing the government performance and every activity where they take place in that country currently. And I appreciate the courage we always get for always expose the excesses of this current government. I just want to elaborate a little bit about the activities of the current opposition. What do you feel, say, especially the All People Congress, when are the majority and the lead opposition party right now? What do you feel about the silence and about the inaction with all the excesses there where the government the pursue, the kind unconstitutional activity? Then I want to really comment on the role of the opposition. I mean, the silence or they be so dormant or they become so intimidated, And I want to elaborate too on this current electoral commissioner where the current president will appoint. I want to get in view about this current appointment. Then I want to really help with for sensitize the citizenry, because like I said, the media don't become dormant, they don't bulldoze the media, they don't become politicized. And in your media, now one of the credible media, he always have spoken, he always do for topics. I want to really elaborate on the rights of the citizens, because the government they use this thing when I say youth. The youth are the most vulnerable people in that society. They take advantage of the youth, they dispose of them. The youth, this current government made up of like 70% of the youth. Like when you look about the Keke Thomas and the anti-corruption commissioner, are the most enlightened youth in that country. There are a lot of youth in the parliament, government institutions, the youth minister. They get a lot of youth the way productive, way for talk for the youth the way unfortunate, who are not educated, and when they go through like 40 in measure, the incident na Tumbu, na 91, na Makini, na young youth and they kill, where they result they perform the national duty for stand up to the excessive of government when are they right for do so. I really want to elaborate on this myth because now the politicians they use, they always use when people when citizens stand up for the right, they say politicians they use them. Now use the way when they're out of control, you know, they demonize the youth too much. I want to hear you touch on the issues there.
Okay,
No
thank you.
contribution.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So, Mr. Ba, you can respond to that.
Yeah. Okay, now we take the question of the opposition. Yeah, I believe say these are the thing. When you say opposition, basically, like large in my understanding in a democracy, in a large definition. But when we take opposition for me, what you talk about the APC, I assume say now you go they refer to. We can want to see opposition more active in a country like ours, and that include opposition not just for be the political parties in parliament, but also political parties outside of parliament, we not representation in parliament. And opposition also extend to what we call civil society organizations that are not part of the government institutional arrangement. You understand? In this case, the executive branch of government. Um, Now that we can refer to opposition, it can include civil society organizations, it can include even the press union, it can include the bar association where they are independent. It can include professional organizations, trade unions, and all that here. This are the largest sector of organizations in the country will fall under the blanket umbrella of an opposition. The political opposition in parliament, you can take as an example, say whether they are playing their role in parliament. In some, to a large extent, we get, critical MPs in parliament. Even within the SLPP, you get Ibrahim Conte, a very close friend of mine, who is a member of parliament for the SLPP from Lumley, who has been very vocal in parliament, even criticizing bills where members of the SLPP want to flow through parliament, including the unaccountable interest for the president, for example, Dana one. And that matter has been lingering with the Anti-Corruption Commission up to now, has never been talked about. Dana one MP, we would say, get a critical voice. And on the side of the APC, you get also active MPs. You remember Hassan Breeze, for example, a very critical MP in a parliament, represented NASIT workers when they were NASIT or statistics salon employees who were dismissed unfairly, take them case in a parliament, and also raise questions regarding the timber arrangement. You get independent MPs like Sheka Samai, where Maada order for me to remove in parliamentary immunity. President required they made them waive the parliamentary immunity of an MP for made the arrest and detain na CID. So these are all individual MPs in parliament who are very vocal. But how the voices translate outside of the walls of parliament is another question. And mind you, we do not have the kind of parliament where we could expect in a vibrant democracy because, as we say, the inauguration of the parliament was witnessed by this parliamentary coup d'etat, which the SLPP ruling party move police people then for go bundle opposition parliamentary outside of parliament and they roguishly install a parliamentary speaker. We not get no business for do with parliament in the first place. Abbas Bundu had no business in parliament. But then decides that the only possible then things they go match the caliber of other opposition MP, like for example, the NGC leader, Kande Yumkela, can be considered as an eloquent MP. So the SLPP no go afford to get a speaker who no go match in eloquence. Maybe then things say Abbas Bundu at least because they believe in this doctorate title. So, amusingly, so that would be one person. That kind of so from the onset, we don't get a parliament that has been whose legitimacy and supremacy has been eroded from the very beginning. So that's one. So opposition inside parliament has been a very difficult thing. Even if opposition want for mount, like now, the appointment of high court judges, including the judge who was presiding over the Paolo Conte case, opposition MPs, including APC MPs, had objections to that. But then their voice no go count because the parliamentary speaker installed through a parliamentary coup d'etat decide how the ayes and whatever kind of sounds the parliamentary debate take, the SLPP will carry the majority in that kind of arrangement. So we now get that kind. But you see, Hassan Breeze, interesting thing what I mentioned Hassan before move. You see, Hassan Breeze was so vocal in parliament to the point that we see this mysterious car incident where Hassan Breeze was nearly killed by a hit and run car. Up to now, nobody has been able to trace the source of that incident, the people behind it, and all of that. But it cannot be unconnected to the general level of violence which happened at the country, where a sitting member of parliament who is so vocal representing this, affected workers and was also criticizing the SLPP's timber deals. And now, a few weeks after the parliamentary debate, this man was nearly killed by an unregistered, unlicensed vehicle that went and knocked him down. And up to now, I think they still get health challenges associated with that incident. So that's an example. Now, yes, the APC and other opposition parties get a critical role for play. You understand? APC and the NGC, and C4C, they get critical role for play in the upcoming arrangement, especially with the census, with the appointment of the next chairman. I understand there is ongoing discussion around opposition party rejection of the current nomination of the next chairperson. That one in a thin way, not just opposition parties, but even independent civil society organizations. I have to stress independent civil society organizations, including citizens, and also mount petitions. Even citizens, ordinary citizens, can mount petitions against the nomination of this individual if they believe this individual, one, is a sympathizer or member of the ruling party, that his appointment, his role as a National Electoral Commission will not be discharged in an independent way that will allow the free and fair conduct of elections. They get right for object to that. And also they get right for demand the impartial functioning of the Political Parties Registration Commission, all these election management institutions from the Political Parties Registration Commission, NEC, the judiciary, the police, the security sector, including the registration, this civil registration authority, all them institutions are very critical in the election that's coming. Now we can add Statistics Sierra Leone as part of the organizational equation, all the organizations who we need for scrutinize leading up to 2023. So the opposition get a critical role for play. But mind you, if we take APC as an opposition, they are still recovering from the politics of Mr. Kuruma, beginning with the Makini Convention, or not just beginning with the Makini Convention, going back to the dismissal of Samsumana, the APC intra-party leadership contest, leading up to the Makini Convention, the imposition of Samura Kamara against the general wish and appreciation of the general majority of the membership, and up to now, the ongoing retention of the party leadership by Mr. Kuruma, his refusal to leave as the party chairman and lifetime leader, and his inauguration as a lifetime leader of the party in Putloko. All of these, they affect the functioning of APC as an opposition party. And the NGC in itself has been losing most of its members to the SLPP as a breakaway faction of the SLPP. You get, for example, Brahma Keita, who was sent critical to that, has gone to the SLPP again. You get other people, and now I hear that some of the members have been given roles as coordinators and spokespeople of the COVID campaign. So all of these things, the idea that employment for politicians as Sierra Leone therefore do with the relationship with the state. So the state and state power determines how you get a job and what kind of job you get. All them things can disable opposition, and parliamentary bribery, intercommittee politics, all them things are people pursuing their individual party interest. But I think if we want opposition parties to function as citizens, members of these parties, including constituent people who vote MPs, can hold MPs at the constituency level accountable by demanding questions, writing letters. I'm impressed with the Bombali MPs with the current position they've taken regarding the Makini incident by demanding an investigation to the Makini incident. That was, what in any MP for do when in constituency is besieged by police violence in that kind of situation. So that is commendable. I also hope that kind of action can be followed repeatedly. And MPs can call for demonstrations. If MPs then think, say, the appointment of a NEC chairperson is not something they like, and that they have decided to use parliamentary powers for reject that particular thing, the ruling party, because of their coup in parliament and their roguish majority can override that, they can call for citizen action against that
Okay.
kind of situation. MPs elsewhere in Kenya, in East Africa, in other places, including South Africa, have called for demonstrations. They have led demonstrations. They can lead demonstrations. They can call demonstrations are part of democratic practice.
That's true.
They are one mechanism to which citizens express grievances regarding the conduct of government. So not an illegal thing. So and MPs leading demonstrations can be a very honorable thing. So we need for encourage MPs as constituents for get the guts for also demand citizen action against the government and lead those actions. you know. Now imagine NGC leadership in alliance with the APC, in alliance with independent MPs and C4C, mounting a call for an investigation
Mm.
of the Padimba Road incident, and even deciding to boycott parliament and deciding that they are giving government ultimatum. If not, they will call for peaceful demonstration. The same way Hands Up Our Girls campaign called for demonstration on the Khadijah incident without even a police clearance. MPs can call for demonstration again regarding a democratic question like having a good and credible census, having a credible electoral commissioner. They can also call for that kind of demonstration and go to the AG's office, just like how citizens were animated some weeks ago in defense of Khadijah and that particular incident. We see how the Hands of Our Girls campaign and all these women activists animated that action. So our MPs can also demand similar kind of action. They can also demand action for the investigation of the Makini incident. For example, why a government for kill people and for relocate a generator? And is it
That's
not the
true.
responsibility of government for providing electricity for everything? Why government get the guts for buy 30 SUVs, but they cannot even buy a single generator? Pass the go take an available generator in another place. So these are questions. What do you mean for national development? How do you decentralize development? Do you decentralize development by minusing and subtracting what is available in one area to give it to another area? Is that how we
So,
undertake national
in,
development? So
in
these
terms
are
of
options
the
we open.
I know you talk a lot about people demonstrating. Do you think the actions of the police, for the fact that the police is being controlled by the government and also the judiciary, does it make it difficult for people to demonstrate?
Yeah, I know people are becoming terrified with the level of that this police action they do, the mass killing of people now for terrify them. I think the SLPP thinks that because they now control the army and the police, they have the barrels of the gun, they can silence people. They can force people into compliance deliberately. You understand? And if they can succeed in doing so towards their third year, meaning that by the time they get to fourth year, fifth year, they will also think that they can rig the ballot box by the use of police violence. And what citizen actions, like what I am suggesting or indicating that is a democratic thing to do, will help institutions of the state like the police to understand that they are secondary to people, you know, the right to demonstrate, the right to hold government accountable. That the police force in itself, the power not override the majority of the people. You understand? Until we get a situation where police people will know say that they're responsible for protect the lives and property of people and not to kill them or destroy them, destroy their property, then we not get the kind of democracy we will get. So police have to be forced to be neutral in situations like this. They have to treat people in power and people outside of power fairly, equally as citizens. And our responsibility for making the police understand that they not understand that one day. And one way for do that, through MPs were responsible for the approval of the IG of police, for example, get the right to invite this IG of police to explain the circumstances under which his men in uniform decided to kill innocent youths in Makini, unarmed youths in Makini, who were demonstrating that the social amenities provided to them by previous government should not be taken away by the current government. If the current government cannot multiply or increase or add what is there, they cannot subtract what is already there that they met there. You know, go do national development by subtracting what is available from, social service that's available when your responsibility to provide services. You can take away services. It is not, it is not, it is not a benevolence. That's something where you obligated for do, that's what you're supposed to do for the people. So the police understand, say, by that action alone, you understand, they should be held accountable. And the leadership of the police, the parliamentarian get right for call them. So these Makini parliamentarians who have requested for an investigation will also move a motion for the invitation of the police leadership to parliament, for making them answer questions regarding the ongoing killing of innocent citizens across the country, including the people who then kill the Padimba Road prisons. So that now one thing for do. But if they see say those methods are not working, they also get right for tell people them for also demand mass action the same way people then come on a street, go demand justice for Khadijah. They have a right to also demand justice for people who've been killed at Padimba Road. They have right for demand justice for the people who've been killed by police brutality in Makini. They have right to demand justice also for the other lives that have been brutalized, or even justice for the people who are now continuously detained in Padimba Road without trial. I'm talking about Herbert George Williams and Darami, who have been held now for how long? They are not even coming to court. Nobody's talking about their case. Even we hear that the health condition of Herbert George Williams, it don't deteriorate to the point that he's no longer able to walk. This go beyond partisan issues. It goes to the question of humanity. It deals with the question of human rights. And everybody, as a human being, will able to feel the pain of another human being, the violation of the right of another human being, regardless of which political party you belong. We get the right for understand the suffering of another person, just like how we understand our own suffering. Oh, I can't hear you for some reason.
When
Hello?
was the last time were you in Sierra Leone?
Oh, I've been good this December, way past so, and I've visited Sierra Leone for 2 weeks and able to travel right across the country. I go Kono, I go Bo Kenema, and I go as far as Kabbalah. I travel almost for most part of the country because I'm in the lead a team of people who go for finalize the investigation, what we do regarding salaries and other things we'll be on the publish beginning the month of March. So I was there not too long ago, less than I think about 6 months ago now. I come out the January 4 anyway.
So, was there any time when you were there that you're afraid of your life?
Oh, it's been shocking for me for see the level of fear. But by the time I go salon, interestingly, that been festivity season, so all these politicians been the run going to their villages for enjoy the new statuses, celebrate Christmas. I was made to understand at the time I was there, the president was celebrating his Christmas in Bond, in his hometown. So we had to try for
Oh,
Bill, turn into a new city. So everybody, I think they were too busy to consider
to
me.
pay attention. Okay.
Yeah, but pay
So,
attention for
will
the
will
people
you
there.
feel comfortable to go there now?
Oh, interestingly, people since March, what's not interesting to me now, the number of people where they call me, even within SLPP circles, they explain how it is not safe for me to go to Sierra Leone, and
Oh
then
wow.
think that they are so angry. And really, events at the country so sufficient enough for me to conclude because we don't see the militarized nature of the current government. They are what we published March 1, we published the first article with the payroll corruption. So interestingly, the government react by arresting civil servants, inviting them to the CID. We call the CID and confirm say yes, they are calling people to answer questions regarding how the African Express was able to obtain documents relating to people's salaries and payments, including monies that we are giving to Fatima Bio and the First Lady's office and all this through the instruction of the office of the president. So, and when you get to a point where an individual is arrested because of what a journalist wrote in a civil servant is arrested, so you begin to understand the nature of the kind of government we get. In fact, Ade Macaulay, as a lawyer representing political detainees, was invited because a journalist in London had published an article in which um, he supposedly made mention of his name or made mention of an issue of a case that he was dealing with and was invited on for be to in the police were interrogating him whether he had spoken to the journalist or not, or whether he had any hands or he had knowledge of how this journalist got access to certain information. So if they can arrest people, including they can invite a lawyer to answer questions regarding the publication of an article. Imagine now you will write the article. What will they do to you? So I think people are justified to warn me not to go to Sierra Leone. So,
Yeah,
but
that's true.
it is so interesting that these people who used my writings during their campaigns, who published all my articles in their newspapers, in fact, the presidential campaign team published on their Facebook page some of the articles I wrote against Mr. Kuruma and his APC leading up to the election, will be so offended by the same kind of position that I took more than 10 years ago. They loved what I was writing. They shared it. They published it. They republished it. To the extent that they celebrated it, and now they are feeling so angry and annoyed. In fact, some of them can kind of me email, that me Facebook page, and they cost me all. But I get
Oh,
amused. Yeah, I get amused with that kind of thing because it doesn't do anything. It just makes me more determined um, to get rid of this
so
kind of culture.
so
We need a
if
society.
if Madabio continue the way they rule the country right now, what do you think their end goal is gonna be like?
Oh, I think that the people of Sierra Leone cannot be taken for granted. If he can learn his lessons, you don't see say this unfinished project that the NPRC was unable to accomplish in 1996 cannot be accomplished in today's world. So the earlier they get to understand that, the better it is for them. Not because the people of Sierra Leone, you have more than 7 million people. I mean, a group of people that are not more than 200 cannot hold this rest of this population hostage. It can't happen, you know. Nobody's going to repeat the days of Sheikh Stephen or J.S. Momo in Sierra Leone. I mean, in this age, when you have a youthful population that is now educated, literate, they've gone to Fobe College, they've come down. Every year, you get more than 1,000 people who graduate from Fobe College, Njala, and all these places. And these people are now increasingly sitting down on a entire basis using WhatsApp, Facebook. So no matter how you do, you're not going to able cage them people there. Yeah, they are going to vote against you if you decide for deny them validity. They're going to chase you out of power. So I mean,
But
Jammeh with all his power was chased out by Gambians. So the
but do
earlier
you think
there's no room
do
for
you
dictatorship. He's not going to. Without I'm saying, it's impossible to think of him continuing continuously. So in fact, I am very skeptical. I'm not too enthusiastic that the SLPP is going to pull off 2023 because the landscape is so tilted. The SLPP is in minority in government more than they were in opposition. You don't understand? We don't get three events in Freetown. The Hands of Our Girls campaign, we then launched in a stadium. We don't get the independence celebration of last year. We don't get all these events. Even the SLPP party youths can no longer come through SLPP events. This is a clear indication that even the SLPP's base is broken down, is scattered. So how can you even think of rigging an election in a situation where your own base self, controller? I mean, you don't have. They are going around Western area, chasing people, grabbing people's lands. This massive state grabbing of land,
yeah,
redistribution of land will happen in Western area. You don't
but
alienate the. Look at what happened at Hamilton. Even they conduct that election 10 times, they're going to lose it 10 times. They're afraid to even conduct that election because
I
they
know,
can't
right?
rig it.
Yeah.
So I don't see the
But
possibility of longevity for the SLPP, except if anything miraculous happen between now to the next year.
but if the election is not gonna be free and fair, they're obviously gonna win. So what thing
No,
could be we own?
but I don't know how to tell you now. The possibility, there's this thing, the determination, the willingness. There's a difference between your intention to rig an election and your capacity to rig an election. You understand that those are two different things.
Don't you think they are
You
capable given what they have
no
already
no
done?
that one there, that their desire to rig the election is not the same as having the capacity to rig an. I think the current group of SLPP politicians do not have the capacity to rig an election. That is not to say they do not want to rig an election,
Okay.
and all the indication they did, but their ability for, well, in the first place, I would take the Hamilton election. Leading up to that election, the SLPP arrested, the government arrested all the APC activists in Hamilton,
Mm-hmm.
including Kaba and all these people, and had them in jail. Okay, they used party thugs, they used the army, the police. We saw images on television where ruling party activists and street thugs vandalized brutalized and vandalized election materials. So they end up scatter the election. They prevented counting because they realized that they had lost with all the violence we don't use, with all the intimidation, the harassment and detention of APC organizers. And they cannot even rig a by-election in their favor. They ended up scattering the votes in front of a cabinet minister. That happened. So that don't tell you, say, they not get the capacity for rig an election. They have a desire to rig an election. So if they cannot rig a tiny by-election in Hamilton, what capacity do they have to rig an entire national election in a situation when they are in the minority? Because who support them again at Kono anyway? They've scattered they've squandered the small sympathy they had in Kono by removing even market women. Market Women's Association, they removed the leaders. These people went as far as removing the head of the Witch Doctors Association of Sierra Leone. Of Sierra Leone. They went as far as removing the Ogriselas Union president in Waterloo. So because they wanted to have so these levels of animosity when you dethrone people and try to put your own party people, what did they do? They alienate you from. That is not how you consolidate power. You cannot consolidate power by threat of violence, by removing people and imposing your own people. It goes so it speaks to the capacity to the capacity of governance. Their thinking capacity is so small, like a mustard seed, that mustard seed get power, but this one is like a tiny grain of sand. So the
But
7 million people can conquer that strategy of rigging an election. That's what I'm saying. There is a difference between wanting to rig an election and having the
rigging.
capacity to. People of Sierra Leone can prevent the rigging of an election. That's what I'm saying. And we have that power.
But
And
do
this kind
you
of competition is one means to preventing the rigging of an election by highlighting, exposing the state's mechanism for rigging an election. And that include the crooked use of statistics, the crooked use of registration, the crooked use of the electoral commission. We can prevent that. But look how the treason trial ends.
do you trust in the electoral commissioner?
In politics, you do not trust individuals. You trust your strategy. That's what I keep reminding people. Opposition parties, the greater majority of Sierra Leoneans they have to have a strategy to prevent the rigging of their votes. They have a responsibility to vote candidate of their
Hold
choice,
on,
and they also have the
Yeah,
responsibility to
hello?
protect the
hold on,
steps
hold
of their.
on.
Okay,
Okay.
so we not only the vote now in election, we get responsible for vote for anybody who we want, and also make sure that we vote there, nobody not tifa.
Okay, tell them.
That one day that responsible citizens. So it's not just a question of voting, but monitoring of the elections from the point of registration, beginning with these upcoming statistics, is one way to prevent the rigging. The second way is the casting of ballot, the monitoring of. But these are conversations that are going to come up. But I'm just saying there's a difference between wanting to rig an election, having a capacity. I don't see this group of politicians in power with all the threat of violence where they don't get to having the capacity to rig an election. Because they are, for make you rig an election, you got to require some kind of high intelligence. and
That's
and
true.
the way they are conducting violence, I mean, the way they are acting does not show that they have that level of intelligence to even rig, to even steal an election, an able thief election. They go on for do
No,
them.
we
But
have a
if
caller.
we
We have a
that
caller on the line. Caller, what's your name and what you calling for?
Yes, I'm calling from Maryland again. This is Mohammed. I just want to add some of my concern, because this is a privilege for me. It's been a while. We have not had this privilege for somebody who can really dissect Sierra Leone politics, Sierra Leone government, because this is on both sides, both the APC and the SMPP. The guy is so eloquent in dissecting the pitfalls, the advantages, and his overwhelming confidence in his description about the two governments. I just want to ask, do you think the election of Maada as a president in Sierra Leone, owing to all his background, his back record, like his days in he's been a two-time coupist, he's been alleged of corruption, embezzling the country with Charles Magai of 20-something million. Recently, the APC flag bearer of 18 million, and even the ex-president of SFPP, Ahmed Jankaba, accused him of clearing the whole account of the country before he handed over power. And owing to his own atrocity to the country, to the people of Sierra Leone, remember he was fighting against peace before election or election before peace, and in 1996 election was occupied with chopping citizens' hands. It was promoting a lot of bad stuff. Do you think that has the election of Maada has given a serious dent to the progress that we have achieved in our democracy? Do you think that is an impediment, or we have just we have confirmed, we have given credence to impunity in Sierra Leone? Because we have seen the images of the war, the civil war, all those things are coming now because of it's Maada is symbolic of the civil war, everything that was wrong in Sierra Leone, and it was able to become a president of that country. Do you think we have given impunity? We have given rights to impunity, that any Sierra Leonean can commit the same egregious crime as Maada, and he can be president as long as he has tribesmen that are ready to die for him. or I don't know. Is this an are we giving credence to impunity? Have we endorsed impunity in Sierra Leone by electing the likes of Marabio with all the what I've said about him? And I want you to critically examine the role of a first lady. Can you please compare and contrast, like the last government with this government in terms of violence and in terms of the way they are governed? Can you please compare and contrast both governance? And I really want you to talk about the nature of impunity in the image of Marabio as the president of Sierra Leone, owing about all his past image, about all his past, what he have done, being
Okay.
two-time copies, he have been all these things. I want to see.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. He's gonna respond now, Mr. Ba.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Nana. In fact, that don't make at the beginning. I think say we all need to reflect on that one day. It's so is I think we current role Nayana for help Madabio for redeeming image. What the election of Madabio in 2018 provided for him was an opportunity to redeem his image. You know, leading up to the elections 2012 and 2018, the APC mounted this campaign against Madabio as a violent individual. His group was characterized by the awareness times as PAOPA simply because of their strategy for the conquest of the SLPP's flag bearer position, you know, how they went about it. So for me, I've been thinking, say, history, watching the event for them provided an opportunity for show these people of Sierra Leone that he is different from what was said about him um, when he decided to contest for the presidency on a supposed democratic ticket and as a civilian politician that has retired from the army. And but it is so unfortunate that the events where we don't see now from March from 2018 to now, 2 years and a couple of months after that, um, that suspicion or that image that was represented of Madabio is exactly what we are now looking at. So that one day, now the most terrible situation, you know, where people, even those who supported him, um, are now appearing to regret because they're not been think say it will turn out in this kind of fashion because no one will imagine having presidential guards, for example, people who are responsible for the security of the president, going to Padimba Road just to witness or see in the middle of a fire inside a jail yard, go surround the perimeter of a prison yard that is on fire and pumping tear gas and live rounds of ammunition into the very building with the determination to kill prisoners. And they actually killed prisoners. The number, we don't even know the amount of people who then killed in Padimba Road prison. You know,
Yeah, that's
who
sad.
does that kind of situation? That one episode alone will make them so horrifying, will even resonate with the image of the Madabio that the APC and other opponents of Madabio within the SLPP tell we would he be before he became president. Secondly, look at what happened in Makini a few days ago, where police officers will go to the town few days after Madabio visit Makini. Police officers and young people engage because his Minister of Energy has instructed the removal of a generator that was provided there by the previous government. In the name of removing that generator, police don't kill 11 young people in Makeni. And immediately after that, what we saw on social media was him and his wife brandishing the test run of a safari motorcycle. This is the conduct of a monster. Only monsters, political monsters, behave in such a way. And this is
Yes.
who we were told Madabio was leading up to the election. We never believed that was the case. I, for one, cannot imagine anybody in this civilized world, in this 21st century, in this modern day and age, where internet is the order of the day, will allow such a thing to happen when you are president of any country. You know,
Well,
it's not even good for your own image. That's
quick
one.
question.
And you
Quick
come on
question.
television
Mhm.
2 days after that to talk about the census without even expressing condolences to the families of those individuals who have been killed.
Yeah.
What kind of callousness is that?
So,
So
do
this
you
one, I think,
suspect
say,
do you
yeah,
suspect any of Maada Bio's violent behavior is being influenced by his wife?
I'm not going to say so. It would be unfair to to say the president were responsible for the appointment of internal affairs minister we cannot be blamed and somebody blame his wife. No. What we see now, the language of his wife is synonymous to what is happening. Before the corona lockdown, before the declaration of state of emergency, in website they will use Babu Kane against opponents of the regime. We saw the violence will happen. In minister of resident minister North, Abu Kuruma, said they are going to kill any young people in the north who decide to demonstrate. They say, we go kill una, we go shoot una and kill una for una mama the way born una. And true to his, he was supposedly suspended and reinstated by Madabio. And a few weeks after that, the reinstatement, we see the exact event where the man described happen right under the man in your jurisdiction, at the very town where the man they live as a as in administrative headquarters, Makini. So the question is, for blaming WEF, I mean, in WEF don't talk say they go barbecue people. In fact, in WEF don't talk in front of her. You say they go disregard due process. Now, in the so-called effort to enforce the rape laws or the sexual violence laws, they go even barbecue the genitals of men. You don't understand. So where is this thing about an accused being presumed innocent? But these statements have been made with the endorsement of the president. So you can't blame his wife. Okay, you got for blame the man himself because for take the case of Abu, you go blame him well for that one day. He appoints, he he sacks people. Where he not comfortable with the end of the treason trial because he not go according to the way he want. He decide for sack the attorney general because he thinks say the woman not able to deliver for and the verdict we want. What is that verdict? The hanging of his political opponent, the man he invited to state house, who they accused of trying to overthrow him. And now, because the court cannot convict the man of the charges he wanted, he decided to dismiss his attorney general. He dismissed Charles Magai. He dismissed this woman. And now he suspended Abu because and then reinstated him. And few days after the reinstatement of Abu, young people have been killed in Makeni, the same way Abu threatened that they are going to be killed if they demonstrate. And this happened few days after, 5 days after Madabu visit Makeni. Are you going to blame his wife for that? No. Blaming his wife is very unfair. Madabio is going to be held responsible for all of these acts of violence and these mass killings that are taking place because he is the commander in chief of the armed forces. He is the fountain of honor and justice. Okay? He is the president of the Republic of Sierra Leone. He is the candidate that was voted for in power. He is responsible for appointing cabinet. He is the head of the executive arm of government. He is the leader of the country. The executive arm of the government include the army, the police, and all of these other institutions will be under the executive branch of government. And they are the ones that are committing these crimes. How are you going to blame his wife, who is not part of government? The only thing is that his wife, by receiving government money that she's not supposed to receive, she is accountable. She's supposed to account for the use of those funds. And that one day, nothing way the Anti-Corruption Commission, the people of Sierra Leone, for demand how he used the money for the people, whether they do it today, but they're going to do it in future, or any other day that the opportunity arises for that to be done.
Okay. Yeah, me from now there's the journey. Una they listen to Cherno Alpha Eba, we at least na the editor in chief for the a popular newspaper, at least when the um um Africanist press, and also in the United States they doing PhD, and now a journalist we a very open up and I pan Africanist in any fear for talk anything, and right now they talk on behalf of journalists the way they don't quiet them, and even to yesterday or day before yesterday we Madam you they talk but he don't repel the I mean for journalists for doing it kind way then they do not lie they lie because when you write waiting for right in the net then they come for you. But God make Mr. Biden at the United States they enjoy the freedom of press the freedom of speech. They talk all with one talk, nobody no go do and nothing. And Mr. Ba, you think say bio commit to for combat corruption at the country, and also they look at what they happy right now. With what in the happy now, if election the whole election now in Sierra Leone. Right now, with waiting the happy the whole election in Sierra Leone now, whose party will go win? Within
I think that one that people of Sierra Leone for determine, because before we hold an election, we got for carry out a campaign. Candidates can go for more campaign on the record campaign. So there has to be a campaign. If I say this party will win or the other party, that are my own preferences I will talk about. But I think say the people of Sierra Leone for decide for themselves, putting good for them. And I believe say if when we visit Sierra Leone December, uh, go across the country, interact with people then at their tower base them and all across the country, they read the grumble, the economic hardship, the difficulties of the country. So people get for decide for themselves whether then they experience the kind of relief would they be expect. If not to that one, they I believe say the Australian public go decide for themselves what in actually they want. So
yeah, Mr. Ba, we know say you're not the United States, but they lays with a base man, they the low privileged man them. But like we don't come for the past 4 years, for when Maada don't win election, they don't travel past 52. If you say that bring any kind of impact on the country, you know, get any idea of what it bring come for travel and this
well, it's funny. A few days ago, we see this whole month we pass. These people they celebrate IMF, World Bank, Corona emergency funds as the success of Maada. But all the time that we Maada travel, that 2 year already they travel. So the only people that we see make commitments. Like we meet with Akon, we promise say he go do street lights in a salon. That are one. we that are one musician. Then the next time we see this guy where they play football for Chelsea, I think get some relationship with Sierra Leone, also donate some money, send for free quality education, which was I think I don't know if you're there up to $100,000 or less than another person, a footballer. This next one again, Idris Elba, where he appoint as some kind of a status for help and attract investment na Bond Island for turn Bond into a city. Because I think say Maada build the plan for return a Bond, so he want turn Bond into some kind of heaven. That's all. So that current aspiration. So we think say apart from there, we not see any significant foreign direct investment, as in the color we don't go salon so far.
Well, okay, Mr. Ba, what I see about what you think about the trial we then do to then Sylvia Blyden, Paulo Conte, and other political detainees?
Well, we don't see. I think say they don't count. They don't count. They don't dismiss one of Sylvia in case they get one more remaining. We already know say that case alone don't highlight the level of repression at the country. It have been subject of a committee to protect journalists recent, call for press freedom in Salon. We see the committee to protect journalists, CPJ in New York, issue a statement on the ongoing harassment of journalists them. Sylvia in case, and Fire Amara Fireaway, where Sujaman and Bitsa Kenema also CPJ released a statement on his behalf. So then why an illustration of the kind of climate of repression we get in the country. So I think say, these are all politically motivated cases, emanating from somebody we then consider as an opponent of Maada for the longest time. Not today Sylvia begin right against Maada. Now Sylvia actually called Maada Paupa, where Maada decide now to own the name and turn her into a campaign group. Now don't become part of the description of the regime. So you see, so the animosity between Sylvia Blyden awareness times against Maada and the Maada get power for arrest them. In the past, they don't get the power for arrest them. So it has been a long drawn battle between the two of them. So the only time now, I think this is the opportunity where Maada gets for detain Sylvia for sure and say, at least Mr. get power now. Not to try to have in their position where they call me violent person call me, so now I can hold you and detain because I may get the soldier man, and I may get the jail man, and I may get the jail, so I can put it in a jail. So that one day, I think that one day, SLPP want to demonstrate with Sylvia. They don't succeed for doing, but they cannot break her down, I think. So let's see what is going to happen now with the magistrate court case. Eventually, it's going to be thrown away, maybe. But how far they're willing for the continuous detention of Sylvia, just the reduce matter. You know, go arrest woman and detain her, so don't expect say the global community go just favor you. Give and take, matter building and then get more for lose in that kind of equation. So it is in their best interest to just leave Sylvia as she is and able for accommodate in critique and live with her.
Okay, and then also what you want to say, Mr. Bar, because like they don't release Miss Sylvia, there are certain things that the way don't happen, the way where we see the administration, they go to investigation, the way they do. I think from one thing, then they come with other thing for counter the other thing, then get another department who then get now the Ministry of Communication, who then call a strategic communication unit, where then they for mommy born. I know, I mean, Eastern are born, then say they will support them, no maju. I don't be there into politics, but the kind way where them people here they lie, it just start like where you get you picking, where you tell and say we school they open they buy for you popo bag, you know, buy them for them. Where school they open they buy for you now, so then they lie. Now what you look at like the thing the way then they do so, where then they lie from people things the way for happy when they happen and una what they talk, when they allow una for talk. How you look at the things the way then they do, because from one lie to another lie, from one lie to another lie, and these people where you talk anything where you talk now, then they put then they politicize say oh now because you know they now party now you make you they talk so now you make you they do so, but certain things they don't see. I want since you don't do that the political system, you follow up the politics system in Africa. And with the things that we don't promise for the past 2 years, because waiting maybe they remember waiting with the note from where the SLPP come into governance, Mr. Jules Allman selling rest. Then they bring rest. Now 2 years this. I don't know how long boats they take for come out China for Kana Salon, but 10 out the rest not reach it. And also then tell me about bridge. They say the bridge they build, 30 days the bridge they build. And me, as sit down there, I watch the first lady where they talk that AYV say when they give the free and quality education, then they give medicine at hospital, and the medicine not to them but fake Panadol, then they give a Panadol. I don't know who side the ship they eat if you don't reach. You understand? And also there are certain things that a lot of things they do they don't promise the people they not happen. But when we they talk, then they feel say you day against the regime, and when they come, you make one slogan: "Power pass allow for better." Than a one. After that, then commodity and say, "President talk and do." You understand? We come up at that slogan. Then they come now say, "Trust the process." You understand? We don't trust the process. Nothing not happen. It. I mean, who saw they go? Who saw they come? And now we don't see Minister Sandy say anybody who want block them way from this regime. Then they crush them. What do you get for say about that, Mr. Ba?
Well, I think say we get to separate disagreement. We get to separate empty political propaganda with the reality where they happen at the ground. That now what thing me basically they say now the fact that it don't enough from what we see beside this government they carry go for the most part. And like how we already underlined for the last 1 or 2 hours now in this conversation, the differences between the truth of the regime and the ongoing repression of the country. So it's sufficient enough now for me we make judgment whether what never promised during the campaigns and what they do now, it actually represent whether what they promise and what they don't do, it reflects the manifesto. So this is a judgment call where everybody get for make. I think this conversation, part of
Almost they lost you.
Hello? Yeah, hello. Yeah, Mr. Ba. Um,
Don't lost and just talk.
okay, my family, we don't lost Mr. Ba. I think so we will try for round up the program because Mr. Ba don't give you a lot of information waiting the happen at the country. And my family now just the join me in Saracast TV with regular program Saloon for Better. Since we don't lost Mr. Ba now, as soon I don't get a lot from Mr. Ba, which he don't say about
So,
waiting.
try for-
We will try for bring them back. If we not get them back, they'll go try for run out the program. So now still hang on. When I not go it low try for get Mr. Ba back now the program, yeah. When I give you a few minutes low try for call him back. This now some technical problem I think he due to the satellite
No, I mean we can bring them back next.
or another time. Okay, yes, we will bring and come back for another time if I'm blame. This is a civil to programs alone for better. I think we for round up a program now because we don't lost Mr. Bami. People who now they watch with the view. And this weekly program producer today na Amjad Jalumi Ba and me na Abdullah Mansari. I think say we will come to Naba next week. We will bring Mr. Ba for now for giving further information about how the country they run. Una tata viewers them and we will see una back next week. Una bye bye.